There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Leave home in the sunshine,
Dance through a meadow,
or sit by a stream and just be. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. Men hunger for freedom but don't see their dungeon is only the thought that they're bound. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found.
there's joy all around us.
Why wait till tomorrow? We've only this moment to live. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air.
Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming, and thanks also to all of those watching online. I'll read this week's topic from This is Rays of the One Light, which are weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. This is, what is it to fail spiritually? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The first passage is from the Gospel of St. Mark, chapter 25. Jesus tells the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 of them wise and 5 foolish. They await the bridegroom, the Christ consciousness. The wise virgins keep the oil in their lamps, symbolic of their devotion, lit through the night. The foolish virgins place no oil in their lamps. These foolish ones are like the average devotee, going through the motions of outer ritual, but keeping no fire of love burning in their hearts. When the bridegroom's coming is announced, the foolish virgin realize their mistake and hasten out to purchase oil. During their absence, the Christ consciousness comes and embraces those who have been awaiting him with devotion. The foolish ones, by their lackluster devotion, are not accepted by him. Watch, therefore, Jesus tells his listeners, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda describes the foolish virgin consciousness he encountered in the Mahamandal hermitage he stayed in as a young man in Benares. I was pleased, he wrote, that my new home possessed an attic where I managed to spend the dawn and morning hours. The ashram members, knowing little of meditation practices, thought I should employ my whole time in organizational duties. They gave me praise for my afternoon work in their office. Don't try to reach God too soon. Their ridicule accompanied one of my early departures toward the attic. Later, during meditation, I felt lifted as though bodily to a sphere uncircumscribed. Thy Master cometh today, a divine womanly voice came from everywhere and nowhere. This spiritual experience was pierced by a shout from a definite locale. A young priest named Habu was calling me from the downstairs kitchen. Mukunda, enough of meditation. You are needed for an errand. The Divine Mother's words were not spoken for the benefit of that priest, the foolish virgin, but for Mukunda, the wise virgin. For this was the day his guru, Sri Yukteswar, came to him. Grieve not, friends, if you feel you have been foolish. No error is forever. Someday, if you keep your lamp lit now, your opportunity will come. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 6th chapter, Krishna promises every devotee, Arjuna, none who works for self-redemption will ever meet an evil destiny. Spiritual failure, though a deep disappointment, is always temporary. Eternal hellfire is but a profession of the vindictiveness in the human mind. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Hello, everyone. Well, 4 months is a long time. And yet I was glad that Swami gave us the reading on immortality, because there really isn't any time. And coming back, I was really struck what great souls have been drawn to live in this community. It's really a joy to be here and back with all of you. We'll try very hard not to talk too much about India today, because we have satsangs coming up, and we'll try to just talk more on the theme. But suffice it to say, it was an extraordinary experience, and many, many stories to tell, many adventures from north to south, east to west, all over India, and experiences that probably won't be repeated in this lifetime. So anyway, it was really a gift, and we'll be sharing with you more. And it's just a joy to see all of you. So come to the community satsang. All will be revealed. And World Brotherhood Day, yes. We're going to divide the stories between those 2 days. So don't think, well, I already heard it. We could have many, many, many sharings. So from Whispers, Master writes, the title of this is, I want to hear thy song in the silence of my soul. Thy gentle voice saying, come home, I often heard. But through many lives it was drowned in the tumult of my wild cravings. I have forsaken the jostling crowds of desire. In the solitude of my mind, my devotion bursts to hear thy voice. Take away every dream memory of earthly sounds that yet linger in my mind. I want to hear thy still voice, ever singing in the silence of my soul. So just to let you know, Jyotish and I are both going to speak, so don't be disappointed if you... Well, there's so many aspects to this topic. First of all, is it possible to fail spiritually? Someone once asked Master, will I leave the spiritual path? And as many of us know, he said, how could you? Everyone in the world is on the spiritual path. And really, there's only one show in all of creation, and that's from the original omnipresent consciousness, all the little sparks of our individuality burst forth. And as it says in the festival, through night skies of consciousness, we wandered and we wondered, what is this? Why am I here? What is this all about? But it's really all about homecoming. That's all that it's, all the experiences of life, the comedies and tragedies and the gains and the losses. It's all in perfect order. That's one thing that's so amazing about India, because to the outward eye, it is total chaos, and yet everything works. You know, there's no room on the bus or the train or the plane, or the plane's canceled, but it all works. And you just realize there's a plan. In the West, we're handicapped by the experience that we can make things work. And in India, you just surrender. You're very aware that you have no control over anything, and yet it all works. And it's the same with our lives. We think we have control over them, but there's a story, and we're just living the story. And we get handed the chapters one by one, and we don't know what the next chapter will be, but God knows. God knows what the next chapter is. And so there's just this great drama going on. And it's all perfect. I mean, that there's this little solar system with these planets going around a sun. And that solar system's part of a big galaxy, and on and on and on. And yet it all works perfectly. And here we have this beautiful little planet that we've been given. And this beautiful blue planet. And everything is constructed beautifully. It's not to say that it is beautiful, because we get in there and we think we can change things, and we force our will on things, and it skews it. Many of you saw the little video clip that Jyotish took at the Pench Tiger Reserve. Well, it's a place where people don't go, 155 square miles, and we'll talk more about it later. But there are no people there. And it's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Everything was perfect. Every tree was like a song to God. And every animal was filled with freedom and joy. And I thought, this is what it's supposed to be like, not what we've made it. And I just wanted to, whoever first thought of a zoo, I thought, what a travesty to take these beautiful creatures and put them in little cages and tanks and all that. But just thinking about our planet, if it weren't for the gravity of the moon, there wouldn't be any tides. And what if the ocean was just one big lake? How boring that would be. I mean, there would be no, and I'm not saying this facetiously, there would be no surfing, there would be no riding the waves, there would be no children splashing, there would all the magnificent things that come from simply having waves on the ocean. And what do the waves do? One by one, they rise and they crash on the shore. And that's what the story of our incarnations, many, many, many. We rise up, we say, oh, here I am, I'm different, I'm special, I'm important, and then we just dissolve on the shore. And that's all that's going on. But it's an act of love. And some of the waves, as you've swum, as we all have swum in the ocean, there's the undertow, there's the waves that pull away. No, I don't want to go to the shore yet. I'm going back out to sea. There must be something fun out there. And then there's the tsunamis that come just crashing destroying everything in their wake. But all the little waves, that's what we are, just coming, calling for freedom. And it's inevitable, it's never ending, it's ineluctable, it's what is. And yet, so how can we fail spiritually? Yes, we may make some bad choices. We all do, we all have, we all will. But in a way, it just doesn't matter. Because in those bad choices, we're learning something. Maybe it seems like we're going in sideways or backwards or upside down, but it doesn't matter. And we were reading, on the way to one of the pilgrimages to Babaji's cave, this was our third, we did 2 in a row, which was a lot, but just physically it was demanding. But we stopped at the ashram of Neem Kurli Baba, who is fairly well known in the West from Ramdas books, and very powerful presence. It's where his body is, his samadhi mandir is there. And we've been reading marvelous books about him. But he loved everyone. And once he would have the devotees massage his feet, and one time there were 2 people massaging his feet, and one was a murderer wanted by the law, and one was a police superintendent, and they were both massaging his feet at the same time. And Neem Kurli Baba said to the murderer, "Isn't there a bounty on your head?" He said, yes, Maharaj, yes, Maharaj. And the police superintendent and it was like they were so embraced in love that they couldn't be opposites of each other. They were just embraced in that love. And so, yeah, we make mistakes, but we can't fail, because the gravity of the moon, which is maybe a not perfectly apt analogy for the magnetism of God that's always pulling us. Come home, come home. And then it's our part to just say, as we read in the reading, how do I keep that fire of devotion burning, strong? That's our part. Because the Christ consciousness is waiting to come. But we did a lot of meditation on this trip, a lot of movement, a lot of meditation, a lot of silence, a lot of noise. It was a lot of opposites. But I really realized that a lot of meditation, a great part of meditation, I should say, and also of the spiritual path, is the art of waiting. Waiting with attention. Waiting for the Christ consciousness to come. Not letting the mind wander, waiting. And that's why it says in the Gita, the wise man sees action in inaction, and inaction in action. And so to see action in inaction, it means it's the art of meditation. It's that you are dynamically using your will and your energy and your concentration to keep your mind attentive and focused and waiting. And so the art of waiting, but then also the art of watching. Watch this for the subtlest little ways that God is speaking to you. We were walking back from Babaji's cave, and I was thinking on one of the pilgrimages, and I was just thinking, oh, I wish I had some hiking poles. And just at that moment, Mangala, just at that moment, who was on the trip with us, came up and said, I won't be using these hiking poles anymore. Here, you take them. And it was just watching. But on the second pilgrimage to Babaji's cave, one of the young men, a very nice young man from Mumbai, came up to me right at the beginning, when they were just arriving from the buses. And he said, I really think we're going to see Babaji. I really think we're going to see Babaji this time. And I just smiled, and I thought, well, I hope you're right. I hope we'll see him. But you can't promise that. And so we had many adventures on those 2 days of the trip. there were many people who really were not physically capable of making that climb. It's 7,000 feet. It's about a half hour, pretty steep up, about a half hour more or less level, but then a half hour quite steep. And there were people who had broken kneecaps. The doctor said, you can't make this trip. There was a woman who had this was in the first trip, she had a deteriorating cervical vertebrae in her neck. She was in a collar, couldn't look down, climbing. Her doctor said, you can't make this trip. There was an 81-year-old man who these were not people who should have been able to make that climb. And yet, every single one of them made it. I could not believe it. And those were just 2 or 3, but most of the people were not at all in good shape. One wonderful girl from Pune, she started out wearing flip-flops. And about halfway through, they fell apart. So she just did it barefoot. And it's jagged rocks. And I saw her the next day, she had a little Band-Aid on her foot. And so in the closing circle, this young man who had said, I really think we're going to see Babaji. We were going around, and he said, well, I was a little disappointed because I didn't see Babaji. And then luckily, one of the other people in the group said, don't you understand? We all saw him. The fact that all of those people could make the climb, how could they have done it without the grace of Babaji? The fact that when we went into his cave to meditate, people thought, oh, I'm going to really meditate and go deep. And a number of people told me I had all this, willpower and concentration. And when I got in the cave, I just totally relaxed. And I just felt like I was home. And I didn't know how much time had gone by. It could have been a minute, it could have been several hours. I didn't know. And so the man answered this young man's question. He said, we all saw Babaji, but we had to be watching how he was coming to us. And so the art of waiting and the art of watching. This is how we form that kind of devotional, ongoing relationship with God that keeps us going in this lifetime, however many lifetimes it takes. But it's something we need to understand. Never stop waiting and never stop watching, no matter how long it may take. Because as it said in the closing passage from the Gita, everyone will find at the end of the journey, no matter how wayward it may have seemed, that God was always there, is always there, will always be there. And we just have to improve our ability to see him and to feel his presence and to surrender. One of my favorite quotes from metaphysical meditation is Master saying, resign yourself to the infinite love within you. He didn't say awaken that love or fight for that love. Resign yourself. It's there already. We just have to rest in it, wait for it, watch it, kindle it. And then ultimately, when the divine bridegroom comes, just to surrender into God's love.
As Davy said, I'll talk briefly too. The watching and the waiting, it's not done with the eyes, and it's not done with the mind, it's done with the heart. And the essence of all spirituality is the yearning of the heart for the divine. That's what the whole parable is about the 10 virgins. Who are they waiting for? They're waiting for the bridegroom to come. And that waiting is of the heart. And so for us, the way that we pass our spiritual tests is that we love more deeply. It's really that simple. Everything begins and ends with that. Now that love may take different form for different people. For some it may, for the disciple, that's why that beautiful chant, "O God, beautiful," is so lovely, because to the lover thou art love, to the yogi thou art bliss. You know, it's for each person that expression of how we love is a little bit different. There's a wonderful disciple of Ananda Ma who was very formative in our life, Hari Priya, for those of you who know her. And she had a very bhakti nature and a very personalized form of worship, of loving God. And she had a little Gopal doll from Vrindavan where we visited. We'll talk mainly or a lot more about that visit next Sunday at World Brotherhood Day, because it's incredible what's happening there with Ananda's work, and we'll share that. But coming back to Hari Priya, she was a direct disciple of Ananda Ma, and she had this little Gopal doll, and she treated that, as was Ma's teaching to her, as if that was the physical presence of Krishna, of the baby Krishna. And she acted as if Krishna embodied that form. And so focused was her consciousness on that in fact Krishna was embodied in that form. When we went to meet Ananda Ma, we asked her all sorts of kind of intellectual questions, and she kind of answered them a little bit and not very much. And we kind of ran out of things to say, so I had a letter that this friend of ours, Hari Priya, had given me, and so I gave it to Ma, given me to give to Ma. And so I gave it to her, and Hari Priya was asking things that I would never in the least bit of my imagination think to ask. Questions like, when I travel, should I bring Gopal with me or leave him at home? Now, that was not something that was ever going to occur to my more rational mind. But whereas Ma was kind of very short answers for us, for that question, she went on for 10 minutes. Well, you see, Gopal would miss you if you're going to be gone for very long. So if it's more than 3 days, you have to take him with you, because he'll be too sad. And if you take him along, here are the clothes that you, and on and on and on. But if it's less than 3 days, he would be disrupted by a short trip. So leave him at home. And here's what you have to leave him if you're going to leave him at home. But this was her expression of loving the divine. It wasn't my expression, but I have my own expression. Swami had his own expression. Each one of us has our own expression. One time Hari Priya and I were talking, and I'm much more impersonal than she ever was, or at least in this lifetime. And we were talking, and I was talking about, the desire for wisdom, the desire for the light, the desire for merging into the light, and deep discipleship. And she said, that may all be fine for you. I just want to love Krishna. End of the story. But see, each of us has a different expression of it, but it all comes back to that. And when that becomes the pole star of our life, whatever our expression of the yearning for the divine, of the love for God, whatever that expression. Swami's was discipleship. And what he said was, at one point I realized that I wanted every thought, every emotion, every action, everything to be completely in tune with Master. When I die, you can put on my gravestone, he was a good disciple. That was his expression. Each of us has that expression. But whatever it is, when you let that desire for the divine, that waiting for, watching for the Christ consciousness to come, when that becomes the pole star of your life, then everything else forms around that. That's one of the things that Devi was saying that came to us much more clearly on this trip than ever before, was there was no control. And when we let go of the desire to control, there were periods of time where all I wanted, very deeply, all I wanted was to be in tune with Babaji. Nothing else. Just to be in tune with Babaji. And magic happened. Way, way beyond what I could ever have dreamt up and created under my own control. Babaji does a better job of running your life than you do. And so does Master, and so does Divine Mother. But they won't do it unless you want them to. It's really as simple as that. So whatever form your devotion, your love, your discipleship takes, make that the pole star of your life, and everything else will be given unto you.